So the wait is finally over and VR Troopers issue 1 is finally out. Now, if you're brand new to the channel or you're just stopping by and you're surprised by seeing a brand new VR Troopers comic book in 2025, let me give you the 411. So last year in November, we had the launch of Power Rangers Prime issue 1. Now, think of Power Rangers Prime as something like the Absolute or the Ultimate Universe from DC and Marvel. This is kind of the same thing, an alternate reality or an alternate world with Power Rangers. And if you want to get up to date with Power Rangers Prime, I've got a playlist on the channel where I've reviewed every single issue of Power Rangers Prime up to date so far. So if you definitely want to catch up, I highly recommend watching those videos where I'll keep you up to speed with everything that's happened in Power Rangers Prime so far. But within this alternate reality, within this alternate world, Eltar has colonized Earth and outlawed Power Rangers. And one of their elite task force of fighters is the VR Troopers, and it's the same VR Troopers you know from the TV show, Caitlin, JB, and of course Ryan Steele. Now there are other elements of VR Troopers from the TV show that carry on to this Power Rangers Prime universe, but it's sort of got its own twist in it because, you know, it's a brand new alternate reality. But this issue is definitely setting up events that's going to take place within the Power Rangers Prime universe, but not only that, other things that's going to get set up within this VR Troopers miniseries. So, without any further ado, let's talk about VR Troopers issue 1 from Boom Studios. So the issue opens up with Ryan Steele unable to sleep, so he goes out for a late night jog. And while he's jogging, he's sort of narrating about who he is, and he also gives the audience an idea of what's going on within this Power Rangers Prime universe where, like I mentioned earlier, how Eltar has colonized Earth and he's a VR trooper that works for him. But one of the things he brings up is how his mum split when he was young and his dad died right before he went into high school. But not only that, he mentions that his relationship with his girlfriend Valentina is complicated right now. So if you don't know, Ryan is dating the Yellow Ranger in Power Rangers Prime, and this comic series will be sort of happening at the same time with Power Rangers Prime, with everything going on. So there's probably going to be things that happen in Power Rangers Prime that is going to get referenced in the VR Troopers comic book. So if you're not following both series, I'll do my best to keep you guys up to speed, but like I said, I've got a playlist of Power Rangers Prime on the channel where I've reviewed every single issue, but also check out Power Rangers Prime for yourself to support the official release as well. So while Ryan's out for his late night jog, he comes across the Angel Grove water and power plant, and he sees a giant hole in the fence, so out of curiosity he transforms and decides to check it out for himself. And when he goes inside, he sees these people wearing these strange masks happening, and he decides to investigate it further. And who he finds some mysterious person working on this machine. And when Ryan goes to check it out, he calls the others, but he's quickly attacked by this mysterious person. Now, if you've seen VR Troopers, you probably have an idea who this mysterious person is. I'm just going to say it right away. It's Darkheart from VR Troopers. It's most likely Ryan's father, because in this issue, we do learn the backstory of I should say backstory with quotation marks, with what happened to Ryan's father, but not only that, the seeds are being planted within this issue, but this is most likely Ryan's father, that is for sure. And especially if you look at the design of this character, when you look at the design of Darkheart in the show, of course, this is definitely that character. So Ryan gets into a bit of a fight with this mysterious person, and he's able to hold his own for a little bit. I will say that he's able to hold his own for a little bit, but he gets ragdolled like crazy by this mysterious cloaked figure. So seeing that he's outmatched in this fight, Ryan ends up using his blaster to destroy the mysterious device that the cloaked figure was working on. And of course, the cloaked figure retaliates by using someone as a hostage, and demands that Ryan hands over his virtualizer. So not wanting to get anyone hurt, Ryan decides to play along and hands over his virtualizer to the stranger. And this cloaked figure is able to use the virtualizer to begin transforming. Now take note of this. This is why it adds more clues to who this person might be, because there's something brought up about the virtualizer later on this issue with who can actually use them and how they can actually use them. So take note of that. So as the person begins transforming, they're soon interrupted as JB jumps in and manages to stab the guy through the torso. So with the person injured, he ends up escaping and ends up getting away. So again, we've got this mysterious cloaked figure that is probably 99% Darkheart from the TV show, which is Ryan's father. So I'm waiting for that shoe to drop in the comics because it's obviously probably Ryan's father because, you know, we learn about Ryan's father's backstory in this issue, and it kind of sets up more clues with who this mysterious person might be within this series. So the mysterious person ends up getting away, and then they go back to their headquarters where they tell their Eltarian commander Zash everything that happened. Now, one of the things we do learn about the masks that the civilians were wearing at the start of the issue is they were branded VR goggles. But not only that, they were Zictor branded VR goggles. So if you know who Zictor is in VR Troopers, if that name rings any bells, yeah, we're definitely seeing Grimlord showing up in this series later down the line eventually. So that means Grimlord exists within the Power Rangers Prime universe. So we can see Grimlord probably show up within Power Rangers Prime, along with VR Troopers, depending on how the crossover between these two series is going to coincide. So I'm really excited to see what Grimlord can actually do within this Power Rangers comic universe or this VR Troopers comic universe, to see them probably at full potential with material that didn't restrict them to like the tokusatsu footage that they used from back in the day with Metal Heroes. So I'm definitely excited to see what they can do with a villain, where they can actually go beyond the reaches of using the Sentai footage or the Japanese stock footage that they were restricted to. So this is where things start to get really interesting, where JB is trying to pull apart the device that we saw earlier on at the start of the issue, but he takes note that most of the parts are from Earth, but it looks like they were trying to build some kind of teleportation device. But this is when we get the big bombshell, and I feel like this is trying to be a curveball to throw us off with who this cloaked figure is, because, you know, the Eltarians, they haven't been the truthfulest of people within the story. So one of the things that Zash reveals is that they were able to pull from the visor and run through their Eltarian databases that the cloaked person's name is classified, but they've been identified as a high-level security threat for both Earth and Eltar. So Caitlin goes on to ask by saying, look, what planet are they from at least? And Zash reveals by saying, they're from Earth, just not this Earth. And this is when we get kind of the big game changer within the Power Rangers Prime universe, learning that there is more multiverses out there, which is something that if you're a fan of Power Rangers, you're aware of many multiverses out there, but for characters like the VR Troopers within this series, this is probably groundbreaking to them to learn there's other realities and other universes out there. Now, one of the things we learn is that 2 years ago, something crossed through the barrier between their realities, believing that it was this mysterious cloaked figure, and the Eltarian government would like to have a word with them. So you can probably guess why, to find out what world they came from, so they can probably go conquer those worlds if they came from different realities. But Zash then goes on to say by saying, this threat is why the VR Troopers were made to combat. So that's an interesting notion. But the whole reason why this is happening here is because that Ryan's father was the first one to break through that barrier, and that's what killed him. Now, we learn what happened to Ryan's father all those years ago. So Tyler Steele and his colleagues were studying the reality barrier and attempting to pierce it, offering Earth's access to another reality. But this was done without the Eltarians' government knowledge or approval, and the experiment had ended up failing, and there was no survivors. So I get the feeling that this is a cover-up story from the Eltarian government, because hearing that the experiment needed their approval, or the Eltarian government had no knowledge that this was going on, and it somehow failed, and there was no survivors, something doesn't really add up with that story, because we see 3 people working on the device when it's getting put together within that flashback. And we see 3 people working on that device. We see Tyler Steele, Ryan's father, a mysterious person who's working behind the device that I am not sure who it is, and we see Professor Hart. And if you've seen VR Troopers, you kind of know Professor Hart's role within the show. So I get the feeling that maybe Professor Hart survived, or the other person who's working on the machine survived. I'm not entirely sure. but I get the feeling there's more to this backstory than meets the eye, because Zarsh brings up something within the flashback by saying Eltar feared that someone in another reality succeeded where Ryan's father didn't, and if Ryan's father is the only one who knew how to build the virtual reality teleporter, then you can probably guess what exactly happened. Now, I do wonder if the events of Darkest Hour also came into play as well, with everything going on and stuff like that around it, but learning that you had Ryan's father build a device where they can travel through different realities is kind of a game changer, because not only that they can go into the VR world, but also other dimensions within the Power Rangers and Power Rangers Prime universe. So it's setting up for a lot of things that we could see later down the line within the comics. That Big Bad Beetleborgs crossover that a lot of people have been wanting to see, it could happen. That reality could be out there. You never know. You never know. That Masked Rider crossover, it could happen. You know, that reality could be out there somewhere. So the doors are open for potential crossovers if they do happen. But yeah, I believe that Eltar probably shut this down because they feared that what this could do, or they wanted the technology for themselves, and they probably have Professor Hart trying to build them one for themselves as well. I mean, they're my theories, they're my predictions with what's going on, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, learning about this revelation, Ryan, of course, is very upset because it's what actually happened to his father that was kept from him for so many years, and getting it dropped on him out of the blue, of course, anyone would be upset. But Ryan walks away and JB and Caitlin stay behind, and they begin having a discussion that maybe Zarsh didn't tell them the entire story, because one thing that JB noticed is that when they were rewatching the footage, Zarsh was very quiet about a lot of things. But one thing that JB noticed is when they looked at the footage is that the mysterious person was able to use the virtualizer and almost able to transform. Why is that part important? Well, it's because it's brought up that the virtualizers are linked to their bio-DNA. So because they're linked to their bio-DNA, that's how they were able to transform. And if this person was able to transform, then that means they would have a very similar bio-DNA structure to Ryan's in a way. So, of course, the big reveal, I've been dancing around it for so long, is that the mysterious person is actually Tyler Hart, Ryan's father, because you do see them in their lab working on a few things, and you do see a photo on their desk, and it is a young Ryan with them. So that looks like that is the big reveal for this issue. Now, one of the things that Caitlin and JB do take note on is that the Eltarians are probably keeping something from them, and that is probably the truth of this whole situation with everything going down. So, like I said, the Eltarians are kind of shady, and now we're actually getting to see how they operate within the VR Troopers with everything going on. Now, issue 1 of VR Troopers doesn't really end on a crazy cliffhanger, but it ends on a note by Ryan saying that he's tired of being kept in the dark by the people who are supposed to care about him. And I get that, because he's got all the Valentina shit happening right now on Power Rangers Prime, and now he's just had this bombshell dropped on him about his father, which is definitely more than meets the eye, and more revelations about that are going to get revealed within this series. But that is pretty much where issue 1 ends up on, where it doesn't end on a crazy cliffhanger, but it ends in Ryan in his room basically sulking in a way. But like I said, he did have a lot of bombshells dropped on him in this first issue. But that was VR Troopers issue number 1, and I thought it was a really good first issue. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely setting up something very special within the Power Rangers and the Power Rangers Prime universe, and I can't wait to see when the two different series are going to come together and how these two different ongoing series are going to play off each other as they keep moving forward. But issue 2 of VR Troopers isn't out until August, so a bit of a wait until we find out what's going to happen in the next issue. But overall, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to see what's going to happen moving forward with this brand new series, to see how it's going to go down. But anyway, guys, what did you think of VR Troopers issue 1? Do you think it was a solid issue 1? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. And with that said, I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Take care. Bye.